Okay, so I told you guys I would go into rhetorical situation and genre in a little bit more depth. I know that you guys have done some reading on that already, um, but I think sometimes it helps to like slow down and explain things verbally. So, genre is the easy part of this to understand, which is basically like what kind of document are you looking at and what is that document supposed to do, right? So, the difference between like a brochure and like a film trailer are huge, right? Those are different types of documents, and there's different conventions that are used in film trailers than there are for brochures. Like your film trailer is going to have probably lots of bright colors automatically. Uh, it's going to have music. It's going to have like a mini story arc. It's going to show like the narrative arc of the film itself in kind of like a condensed form. It's going to introduce your primary characters, right? That's what a film trailer does, right? Versus like a brochure, which is a totally different sort of genre, right? Which is gonna be easy, very quick, plain, often boring way of communicating information about a very generally like narrow topic that is of educational, some sort of like public education type of thing, right? Um, so it's a means of communicating really kind of like basic need to know types of information in a way that's a little bit more engaging than like a flyer or something, right? Political emails will have a totally different sort of like that's a genre of its own at this point. I don't know if you guys get emails from different political candidates begging for money and saying what they're going to do for you, right? But they're like very specific conventions, right? And like by the end of that letter, they will tell you that they need money and that by giving them money, you're going to help them achieve X, Y, Z, right? And that is a convention specifically of the political email, right? Um, a letter to the editor, even though it's also a letter and often actually an email, is going to be a totally different sort of thing that's meant for a different audience and it's trying to get a different end game, right? The goal of a letter to the editor is to communicate with everybody who is actually reading this publication and to tell them, like, hey, this is how we should actually think about this issue or this thing or this previous article that was published, right? So they're communicating an idea and trying to win people over to like a stance or a position rather than, getting money. um, what else do we have here? Right, flyers, film trailers, video commercials, right? So video commercials and advertisements, right? They are similar to so like a trailer for a film and a video advertisement for a vacuum cleaner, right? Might be really similar, but they're gonna have a totally different end game, right? And they're gonna do much different things. So you're probably not gonna get quite as there's not gonna be usually a whole lot of explosions. Hopefully not a whole lot of explosions in a vacuum cleaner commercial. You're not gonna get primary characters unless they're actually kind of doing like a spoof of a film inside of the commercial itself. But usually you'll have you know a series of demonstrations of why you need this product, right, and why it's good and why it's better than its competitors, right? And that's one of the things that you see. That's one of the conventions again of film advertisements is they will be like, here's the other leading brand, and here's us, and they're constantly actually like platforming their competitor to show you, but actually we're better, and this is why. So think about that's how you think about genre, right? Is first figure out what kind of document am I looking at? What is this thing, right? And then what are the conventions of this genre? Like, are all the other things inside of this genre? What do they do, and how do they do it? Right? Do they use comparisons? Do they use bright lights and music? Do they, have a narrative arc, or is it more informational? How, like, what are the norms for this genre? And then yeah, and then you can look at after you know that you can look at like, okay, well, this is how this document is actually diverging from the norms of the genre that it's in, or how it's conforming to them, how it's doing new things, how it's actually like engaging weirdly in this other genre over here. It's really interesting to look at documents in this kind of way. So that's the easy part. The slightly more complex part that my students get stuck on quite a lot is rhetorical situation, right? Rhetorical situation is your topic, your audience or your readers, the angle, purpose, and context. Okay, so your topic, right? That's really simple. Most of the time, your topic is X, right? Your topic is vacuum cleaners. Your topic is, Avengers, episode 22 or whatever. Right? Your topic is going to be climate change. Um, you have a specific topic, and it's usually pretty easy to identify the topic in any given document, right? How you engage with that topic, right, depends on the rest of the rhetorical situation. So, audience and readers, like who are you trying to talk to, right? So, if you're going to write an essay, right, for millennials about climate change, it's going to be totally different than if you write it for like an older generation, right? Or even like, right, Gen Z, right? The sort of differences there in language and approach to communication are significant enough that something written for one specific generation is going to be different than other people, right? Same thing if you're writing a piece on climate change for scholars. That's going to take a very, very different tone than if you're writing it for college students or, for high school freshmen or for eighth graders, right? Um, all of these things play into the way that the document like takes form. Like how long is it? What kinds of words you're using? The general tone. All of that is affected by like how you alter the way you talk because of who you're talking to, right? And the way that you imagine that your point will be taken positively or negatively, right? Depending on how you talk to that person. Okay. So like when you, I don't know, talk to your doctor, you probably talk to your doctor a little bit differently than you talk to like your best friend, right? When you text, even probably like some of the texts that you guys are sending to me through that messaging app are totally different tone than the way you text your friends and your family and stuff, right? So that's what we're talking about in terms of um, figure out who the document is intended for, right? And that's the intended audience or readership. Okay, and then the angle is a little bit tricky. Is like how are you making what you want to say, or how are you making this topic new or interesting or valuable to your readers, and like how are you getting a specific kind of point across, right? So like let's say my my audience is second grade children, right? And my purpose and my topic is dental hygiene. Okay, and my purpose is to get second grade children to brush their teeth on a regular basis and not complain about it, right? Um, my angle for that is going to be much, much different than if I had a different audience. So my angle, how do I make second graders want to brush their teeth? Well, like I'll tell them that Batman brushes his teeth 12 times a day and has the most amazingly clean teeth in the world, and that is like part of why he has such incredible superpowers is because dental hygiene is a thing, right? So what that does is that's your angle. Is you make it cool, right? I'm going to make toothbrushing cool. I'm going to make it interesting and admirable and a heroic trait to be persuasive, right? If I had a totally different audience, right? Like let's say I had like uh, um, a group of like 17-year-olds or whatever, and I'm still trying to get them to brush their teeth. Unfortunately, my angle is going to be totally different. Be like, oh, you're never going to get a date if you don't brush your teeth. Okay, right? And then I show them a bunch of pictures of like awful, awful teeth that are falling apart, and there's plaque everywhere and lots of staining. And say like these people are never getting dates, right? That is the kind of like basis of angle and how your angle changes depending on who you're talking to as well and what your purpose is, right? Um, so in the first instance, I was trying to make toothbrushing look cool, right? To be like, oh yeah, positives. This is go do that, second graders. And in the second instance, my angle is to make not brushing your teeth seem disgusting, right? And saying you are going to be gross if you do not brush your teeth, and you'll never get a date, and you'll be a social outcast, and your life will end, and blah blah blah, right? So you're kind of like, see I mean, these are absurd examples, but what I'm showing you It's how your angle is kind of like the way that you're getting at your topic and the way that you're convincing someone to take a certain stance, right? Are you using, right? It's positive to do this, it's negative, it's cool, it's awful, it's catastrophic, it's our only hope, right? How are you going to package this idea to be persuasive? And then context is basically just like the is an understanding of the context under which you would encounter uh, a specific document. So earlier in the other video, I was explaining that you guys need to know like where these ads came from, right? Because the ads in like 17 are totally different than the ads in Redbook, and also totally different than the ads in GQ, and also totally different than the ads in like um, I don't know, National Geographic. Okay, so the context of like how is one going to, how do I anticipate that an audience member or reader will encounter this document, right? So if it's a pop-up on the internet, right, that's a totally different context again than like 17 magazine or something like that. Um, um, yeah, so think context, right? The ads that we see in different places all say like really specific things about who this ad is trying to reach and what it's trying to do. So that's your rhetorical situation. Um, Angle is the one that my students traditionally have the most trouble with, and if you are having trouble with angle as we go through the semester, just email me, and I can actually literally, we can just like brainstorm through what it is you're trying to do and what you're thinking about, and do some analysis on like what the angle actually is. But think about, right, like different audiences and how that angle would change, even if you're trying to get the same end goal, right? Uh, yeah, right. Okay, yeah. So like when you try to sell things to kids, they oftentimes will be like, oh yeah, get your mom to buy you XYZ thing, you know, like ask your mom for this, because the kids don't have money, so they have to like take that second step and be like, direct the child to their parent to ask for this thing to go get the thing, right? And you actually see that same thing in um, commercials for medications, where they'll say like, ask your doctor if blah 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 would be right for you, right? It's because you can't just go out and buy it yourself, is you have to go ask that other person. So they're like literally like walking you through the stages of how to get something. Um, and that's totally different when the ad is directed at an adult who presumably has enough money to buy the product and doesn't need to go through like an intermediary to do so, right? So again, that's part of what we're looking at here is like, what is the angle doing, right? How are they using this angle to get someone to take on a specific idea or to like want to buy something? Um, yeah. Okay. If I've confused you, let me know. Just send me a message, and we'll talk about it and figure it out. And otherwise, have a terrific rest of the weekend, and turn in your SWA1 on Monday. All right.